These are my note cards. This is my audience.
Hello.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming to hear me speak. So recently, my mother was diagnosed with hypertension and she was prescribed antihypertensives to get her blood pressure back under control. One day, I randomly asked to check her blood pressure to get an idea of her health status, and her reading was 180/90. So to put that into perspective, the American Heart Association recommends that a normal systolic or upper number is less than 120. And then a normal diastolic or lower number is less than 80. And according to their standards, my mother was experiencing a hypertensive crisis. But after 10 minutes, I rechecked her blood pressure and it was 140/80. So how could such a drastic change been made in 10 minutes? And had my mother's blood pressure been checked at the physician's office and had that initial reading, would her medications been adjusted to some sort of a dangerous level? So my name is Elizabeth Churchwell, and I've learned many different ways over the years since being a certified nursing assistant to now being a registered nurse on how to prevent inaccurate blood pressure readings and how to properly do it. And I'd like to go over the factors that can change it. So the first thing that you want to consider when having your blood pressure read at your annual health screenings is your physical and environmental factors. So you want to make sure that your bladder is empty before having your blood pressure read. According to Monk, of 10 factors that can affect your blood pressure readings, a full bladder can increase your systolic pressure by 10 to 15 millimeters of mercury. So that is very inaccurate. You also want to avoid strenuous activity or exercise before having your pressure read. So you want to rest for about 5 minutes right before having your blood pressure done. You can have false highs if you don't do this. You want to avoid speaking while your blood pressure is being checked. According to the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, your blood pressure will increase while you're talking. You want to ensure that you have a comfortable environment. So I would highly recommend that if you have children, try leaving them with a babysitter if you can when going for your annual screening, because I'm a parent and I know that having my kids around sometimes can be stressful if they're running around the office, and that can definitely cause an increase in your blood pressure. So you also want to dress appropriately for the weather. If it's too cold, like if you're feeling too cold and you start to shiver, your blood pressure will go up. And you also want to avoid eating a large meal before having your blood pressure checked. In some cases, if you eat a heavy meal before checking your blood pressure, you can experience a lower than normal pressure for you. Because what's happening is the blood is shunting from other areas of your body to the gut to facilitate the digestion process. So once you've considered all of those factors, you want to look at how you are positioned while you're having your blood pressure read. So you really want to try to avoid slouching. I have a chair here to show you how to do this. You want to sit with your back against the back of the chair and fully supported. If you're slouching, you can your diastolic pressure can be falsely increased by 6 millimeters of mercury. You don't want your legs crossed. This is no. Because according to Monk of 10 factors, that can affect your blood pressure reading by increasing your systolic pressure by 2 to 8 millimeters of mercury. So you want to keep your feet flat on the ground. This is a good position. Well, and the arm that's being measured, you want it to be at the level of the heart. So your heart is right here. You want your arm to be right about that position. So the cuff will actually be in line with that. So according to Seckel of obtaining accurate non-invasive blood pressure measurements in adults, if your arm is above the level of the heart, you will have a low reading. And if it's below the level of the heart, you'll have a false high reading. Good practice for initial reading is to have your pressure read in both arms. So this can help, if there's like a significant difference, this can help identify, some sort of an arterial occlusion. So the next thing to consider while having your blood pressure read is the cuff size. So the size of the cuff can significantly impact your blood pressure. So according to Pickering of recommendations for blood pressure measurements in humans and experimental animals, the ideal length of the cuff should be 80% the arm circumference. So I have a cuff here that is a good size for me, and you can see what that looks like. Right here, it goes on, and it fits nice and snug. It's a really good cuff for me. Cuff sizes do range from pediatric to large adult, and according to Sprafka of effective cuff size on blood pressure measurements in adults, one size too small can cause an increase in blood pressure by 2 to 6 millimeters mercury. One size too large can cause a false low reading. So in my mother's case, there were a few factors that were affecting her blood pressure. She'd just come inside from bringing groceries. She had a full bladder. She was talking while her blood pressure was being read, and she also had her legs crossed. So as you can see, like, she had basically everything wrong going on. After having her relax for about 10 minutes and relieving all the other factors, her blood pressure went down to what's more normal for her. So, now when you go forward and have your blood pressure checked for your annual screenings, you can advocate for yourself. If you feel that your blood pressure is inaccurate, you can look at different factors like the environment or, the cuff size or your positioning to decide whether or not you want your medical professional to reevaluate your blood pressure. And this is very important because this could avoid you being prescribed medications that could cause you harm or falsely being diagnosed with hypertension. Thank you for coming to listen to my speech.